And I'll tell you, I have a lot more respect for that guy now after being in business for myself for 10 years than I did before, because it's tough. I mean, it's a challenge, but I'll tell you, it's one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do if you can do it all the way. And it's not impossible. I mean, you read the statistics, you read the odds saying entrepreneurship is horrible, and I disagree. If you do it the right way, if you put the hours in, I mean, don't kid yourself. I mean, there's an old saying in terms for entrepreneurship. When I went in business for myself, I just started working half days. Whatever I do with the other 12 hours is entirely up to me. Entrepreneurship is a lot of work, but it's very rewarding, and I think it's a great lifestyle, and it's just been fantastic for me, and I've been very blessed with my successes. So I know this is an innovation type of concept, innovation type contest. So I'm going to talk about some of the innovations I did, and maybe hopefully give you some insight, maybe give you some food for thought. And I'll start with, I've got a couple key ones. The first one I'll talk about is the service I got into. Our business model is what we call CFO controller services. And what that means is we get into businesses, typically privately held smaller business, and we outsource that CFO controller function. So we do monthly financials, we help them get financing, we'll help them with reporting, lots of things. That category really doesn't exist. It's not like you're going to a store, to a pet store to buy a pet, or you're going to McDonald's to buy a hamburger. I mean, there's not really a category for that. And that was by design, because we basically, or we meaning I at the time, invented the concept because I thought it would be really cool, it would be really neat. So really taking not the CPA, traditional CPA route, but to do a little spin on it, do something different, which is tremendously helpful because then there's no competition. Because if you can't really look at the Yellow Pages, well, where's the CFO controller service? It doesn't really exist, so there's not really competition. So there's challenges associated with that too, but just talking about the innovation and the concept there, because there's not a whole lot that you have to deal with there. All you have to do is educate people. If you can educate people on your value proposition, it makes it a lot better. Because again, I'm a licensed CPA. We do a hybrid CPA work. I mean, you can throw a stone and hit an accountant. I mean, one of your uncles or brothers or friends or cousins, there's probably an accountant in your family. You probably have one for your taxes. Because there's a lot of accountants. So to be in that mindset and to be that mess. And when I started, I was like that, by the way. When I started, I was just doing anything for $1. And it was just that CPA, and everyone has a CPA. Everyone knows a tax guy. So you have to be different. You have to challenge yourself to do something, even if there's not a category out there, even if it's something totally different and totally stupid and bizarre. That's the stuff that works because you're small and you're not going to be able to compete with some of these bigger companies. So to do something, if you guys are serious, taking this to the next level beyond the contest, just think about what would be cool, what would be neat, where is there a need that someone's just not doing it the same way. And that was really successful for me. The second story I want to share is with the radio show. Because I did start a radio show, did it for 3 years, won awards with it. It was tremendously successful and a very worthwhile experience. I'll tell you a couple of things about that. Number one, the radio show was a pure marketing ploy for my consulting services. The only reason I ever got into it was to market myself. So it was an innovative, because again, I didn't have a lot of money, I didn't come from a lot of background, so I was bootstrapping it. I was basically working out my basement, getting the business up and running. Got a client, his name is Bob Allison, which all of you are so young, none of you are going to know who that is more than likely. But he's a guy, he's still on the radio, he has an old folk show, he used to do Bowling for Dollars. He's been on the radio for about 50 years. Great guy, great client. He's in business, he had this radio show. So I learned the radio business, and I said, hey, that would be a great way to go promote my consulting firm. I'll do a radio show, I'll talk about my entrepreneurship. It's not going to be an infomercial, it's going to be a radio show talking about entrepreneurship and get me in front of different entrepreneurs. And guess what? That really took my business to the next level at the time because it was just a cool, innovative marketing concept for the business. Now, radio, if you probably don't know this, but a lot of people pay for the time on radio. That if you want to start, any of you could start a radio show right now on a lot of stations. If you have enough money, you can go to the station and say, I want to buy time on this slot. You can do a radio show on basically whatever you want as long as it's not off of like bizarre stuff, I guess. But you can pretty much write a check and buy airtime. Well, I didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I guess I still don't have a lot of money. So I had to become creative. Let me share the story about one more innovative story, is how I got on the air with no money. So what I ended up doing was I went to a radio station and said, let me do this hour. I can do it. I can do the show. It's a business show, entrepreneurship. Sponsors are going to come pouring in, no big deal. Well, I convinced the guy to give me a month for free. To say, okay, you can get terms. You can do the first month free, get your feet under you, and do it. And a little side note, I did the radio show the first day. I never did radio. I've always done public speaking. I never did radio. I went on there for an hour. I bought a block of an hour. So it was basically 60 minutes of me being on the radio. Well, I decided, when I went out there, I said, I'm going to talk for 2 minutes, say, okay, callers, ask me your questions. Well, I basically did that, talked for 2 minutes. Callers, ask me your questions. Didn't get a single caller. So I got 58 minutes to talk. I mean, literally, so just talking, no commercials, no breaks or anything like that. I came home to my wife almost in tears that night saying, I can't do it this way. This doesn't make any sense. So we went in a tape recorder, went out in the middle of the night, getting tape equipment to be able to tape commercials so I could at least have breaks and a segue. Of doing it for a month straight, I think I had 3 callers. So then I started having guests over, and it was just a nightmare. And I never got sponsors. And the guy said, well, the month's up. Where's your first check? Set up a separate company. Basically, the company was there. They didn't go after it because there was nothing to go after. Went out. But when I was on that radio show, I did get some traction. I started getting that marketing process. Because if any of you have done any sales or marketing, it's a process. People, it's not the used car salesman model, what you see on TV. Sales is a slow, drawn-out, relationship-driven process. So when I was doing that for the month that I did it, I did connect with someone at Clear Channel. And they said, love the show, like the idea, like the concept, why don't you come over here? So I got to go over to 1130 The Fan, and I got to do it for 3 years after that. When I got onto 1130 The Fan, I definitely got some traction with the sponsors, because I was on some BS. The first that month I did was some, I think it was 1460 AM. I'm sure no one knows what that is, because I don't know what it is. It was just this potpourri signal that was out there that was playing. Well, 1130 Fan had some traction, had some great ability, and got some sponsors, and it self-sustained itself for a number of years. It worked out well. So that's the third thing I want to talk about, innovation, in terms of taking your businesses, because all it takes is an idea. It takes a great idea and hard work. I mean, you can get around the money issues, you can get around the struggles, you can get around not having the skill set, because people don't know. Once you're an entrepreneur, you're out there doing business, people will listen to you, people will talk, as long as you have a good, compelling message. And other than that, I mean, that's my story. In terms of, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask, but in terms of innovation, I mean, over 10 years, that's about it in terms of innovation. Other than that, it's just been grinding out, hard work, and that terror of working that day job. So, well, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bren. Okay, now can everyone hear me? I know I don't have the loudest voice, but I'll do my best. All right. I think you brought up a lot of really good points, actually. This whole idea of having to think outside the box. You're up against a lot of competition out there. When you've got the same problem, you're trying to solve the same solution. You have to do something to make yourself stand out, which is really the whole point of this competition, is you've all got the same concept. And actually, some of you know this and some of you don't, but Global Innovation Tournament is actually an international competition. So this goes beyond Lawrence Tech, and this is a competition that right now is taking place all around the world, and it's the same exact problem everywhere. And that's determined by Stanford University, who coordinates this event. They're the ones who decide what the challenge is going to be. And they disseminate that information all across the globe. So the finals of these that go back to Stanford come back in several different languages. There's people from different countries who have to serve as judges to make that language barrier work for them. So it truly is a global innovation tournament. It is an international event that you're taking part in. And each of you is going to be working on solutions that, at this university, you may only be competing against 6 other teams or 5 other teams from your perspective to make yourself stand out, make yourself really be the top team that has the best idea and can really be creative about it. But these actually, at the end of our tournament, our top 3 submissions will be sent to Stanford to be judged on the international level. So if you think of that as well, you've got this whole global scope that your message could reach out to. And on that note, learning a little bit more about that, we're getting closer to announcing the Mystery Challenge. First, I want to reiterate some of the rules, because I'm guessing after you hear the Mystery Challenge, you're not going to want to listen to me talk anymore. You're going to want to go work. So I just want to reiterate some of the rules for those of you who are coming on board, whose team captain talked them into being here, but they haven't heard that much more about this competition. So the first thing is that your goal is to create as much value and have as much impact as possible with your idea. The other rule is it's up to your team to define what value is. There's several things. This could be financial value, educational, artistic, humorous. It could be bringing people together. It can be any type of value that you want to decide. It's just up to you to communicate how you define value in your video.